What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fountain City Hockey Podcast, a podcast for the fans by a fan. Today I have a special treat for you. Coming back for his fourth year with the Columbus Riverdragons. He was a forward for his first two, and now going into his second year of playing defenseman. We have today Kirk Underwood. Welcome, Kirk. Thank you. It's an honor to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, first question I ask everybody when they come on, who is Kirk Underwood?
Kirk Underwood is a guy from Colorado, Littleton, Colorado, born and raised. Played hockey a little bit all over. Played on the East Coast, the Northeast for a little bit, and then bounced around a little bit up there, and then moved to the desert for my last couple of years of college. And then I got out here in Columbus, and I've kind of made a home in Columbus now.
Okay. Take me through your childhood as far as, did you play any other sports other than hockey, or was hockey really the only thing?
Yeah, so I played roller hockey growing up, actually. I started when I was 5 years old. And my sister kind of was the one that got me into it. She was a goalie when I was growing up, and I would go to her games when I was really little, and I just kind of fell in love with it and started playing in the street. But I also played baseball all the way up into high school. And then once I got to high school, I kind of just switched, and I decided hockey was the only thing that I really wanted to kind of go after and really do. And besides that, I had a little stint with football, but besides that, it was pretty much just hockey and baseball.
Okay, and you said you're from Littleton, Colorado.
Yep.
So what were some other hobbies up in Colorado that you would partake in?
It was really just being outdoors. Obviously, Colorado is a big outdoorsy state. A lot of camping and hiking and fishing, stuff like that. That's something that I definitely partook in when I was a kid. A lot of family camping trips, lots of hiking outdoors at the Red Rocks, and fishing too.
Skiing or snowboarding?
That's a big thing, actually, right there. I didn't do either. I've never done either. It's wicked expensive in Colorado, and it was one of those situations that was play hockey or do that, right? So I chose play hockey.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to go up to West Virginia to snowshoe, and they have a place that they actually call snowshoe as Little Aspen. It's one of the 2 or 3 mountains that the resorts are on top of the mountain, so you can just walk out your condo door and jump on your board or your skis and go.
That's wicked cool.
I got to go. My first trip was to Ski Beach, North Carolina, and then, like I said, snowshoe. So it was pretty fun. I mean, it's definitely something new.
That's awesome.
So no snowboarding, no skiing, played baseball for a little bit, and then it was pretty much hockey from there on out once you got to high school. What age did you feel like you could make maybe a professional career out of hockey?
It was something that I really always wanted to do. I was definitely one of those kids growing up that I was like, I want to play in the NHL. Unfortunately, I didn't make it to the NHL, but it was never something that I thought was necessarily out of reach, making it a profession. I don't know. It was just always my plan growing up. It was the only thing that I've ever wanted to do professionally in a work setting, right? It was the only thing that I had ever really worked that hard towards. I don't know, maybe when I got into high school, my freshman year, I started playing varsity right away at one of the top schools in Colorado. And it was pretty rare for freshmen to make the varsity team at that school just because they had a pretty deep talent pool. And so when I made that team and I was playing regularly, I think that's kind of when I realized, okay, like I might actually have a shot at going farther than most of the kids in my area.
I was about to say, because, I mean, you wound up making Division III NCAA hockey, and, I mean, even just to make college playing a sport, I mean, you got to be in the top 1%, and then to go play pro, even if it is single A minor league pro, it's only the top 1% of that, and then it's the top 1% of that go up. So I mean, you're still in that niche of being one of the best to actually make it and be able to play the sport for a living.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong, and I think that does kind of get lost on everyone at this level a lot. I do think that we kind of lose sight of that for sure, just because there are a lot of players that are, at better levels than us. But yeah, and it is, you're right. Absolutely. It is the top percentage of individuals at this level.
Now, you said you went out out west to the desert after playing on the east for a while. How was that?
Yeah, that was new for me. Obviously, I'm from the western side of the United States. I wouldn't say West Coast because Colorado is definitely landlocked. But it was different from what I had experienced for the last several years in junior hockey. It was really cool. It was a different experience. Vegas is a crazy town, as everyone can imagine. It was a really fun college experience,
Mm.
and it was a significantly bigger school than I was at. The school that I was at before the NCAA D3 school was like 1,100 undergrad students, and UNLV, I think, is over 30,000. So the transition there was probably the biggest, but I loved every second of it.
So you finish up with college. The COVID season comes around, and they cancel the season. How long was it that they canceled the season that you came to Columbus? Did you finish out getting your degree, or did you just come straight over?
No, yeah. So my senior year would have been the COVID year, which sucked. And I wasn't ever one of those guys that had planned on doing a fifth year or anything like that. So, I got my degree. I have a bachelor's of science in kinesiology. I actually graduated in 3.5 years, so I did it a little bit faster, even with transferring. And my COVID year, my senior year, we had planned on playing an abbreviated season, kind of like the NHL did, and we were waiting on the league to kind of make a ruling on, where we were going to play, how many games it was going to be, everything like that. And we got into January, almost into February, and we were finally like, it's not going to happen. It's hanging over everyone's heads. So we need to just probably call it at this point, and kind of game plan for next year. We had played a little 3-on-3 league in Vegas during that time while we were waiting. All the pro guys that were from Vegas and living in Vegas, all the Division I players, all the college guys, everyone from UNLV. We had a little 3-on-3 tournament, or season, I should say, rather, where we would play a couple of games a week, and that was a lot of fun. Obviously, that wasn't like having a senior season or a full season, but it was definitely a nice thing to kind of fill the gap at the time. And then after I graduated from UNLV, we were obviously still right in the middle of the pandemic, and I didn't have any sights on playing. So I got double hip surgery, and it kind of gone through an entire recovery for that. So I did my left hip, rehabbed from that for about 4 months, and I did my right hip immediately after that, and I rehabbed for about 4 months. And right around that time, I had really gotten the itch to play again. And so I reached out to Brad Nolan, who was playing down here at the time, who I had played with in junior about 10 years before that. And I asked him if they needed anyone, if he could reach out to me. And he did. And I came down here.
Okay. So you never went to any camps with the ECSP or anything like that. You just came straight to Columbus.
Yeah, exactly. I had known quite a few guys on this team in particular that first year that I came down here. And I was at the point when I transferred from Division III to UNLV. I was kind of at the point where the higher you get into hockey, the more it becomes a job, and the more the fun is kind of sucked out of it, unfortunately. And I was in a place when I transferred from Chatham to UNLV where I just wasn't loving hockey. And then when I got to UNLV, I started loving hockey again, really enjoyed it. I surrounded myself with people who actually just really did have a passion for hockey, which was nice. And then when I had decided I really wanted to start playing again, it was tough having that break from the COVID year and hip surgery, just because a lot of teams are like, yeah, you didn't, I mean, no one played this last year, but you also had hip surgery and you haven't played for the first half of this season. So no one really wanted to take a chance. And so I got the opportunity to come down to Columbus. I flew in, and the rest is kind of history.
That's great. Well, I know you came in the middle of the 21-22 season. Wound up playing 27 games, and you've always been a forward for your whole career except for this past year, correct?
Yep, correct.
Yeah. So 27 games, only 7 points, but like you said, you're coming off of double hip surgery in a COVID year, and then went on to the playoffs that year. Wound up losing to Watertown. How did that feel your first year going pro, actually being able to make it to the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, it it was all a really cool experience just from being in Columbus and being at the professional level, where hockey is really the biggest focus on everything you're doing. When I was in college, it's a huge balance, right? Of you have to work, you have to go to school, and then you get to play hockey too. And this was nice just being able to focus on hockey, which was a really cool experience. And then being able to go that deep into playoffs and unfortunately losing in game 3 of the finals. There's a lot of mixed emotions. I've never won anything big in my hockey career. I've come in second a lot of times. I came in second once in junior in our league. We lost in the finals. And I lost in the national championship in high school in overtime as well. So to make it that deep, it was really cool. It was nice to be a part of a winning culture. It sucked and it stung really bad because it's always one of those questions like how long until you make it back to that point, if ever.
Absolutely. Now, like you said, it sucked and it stung really bad. So, I mean, looking at your next season, it looked like you put a chip on your own shoulder to come out and show what you're actually made of and what you can do being fully healthy, having a full off season to actually train and not do rehab. 48 games, came out with 31 points. And a lot of people don't look at the plus minus of a player, which does mean a lot because you're not just focusing on your offense, but you're focusing on your defense as well. Your plus minus for that year was plus 40.
Yeah.
Don't know if you're aware of that or not.
I don't. I'm definitely a defensive guy. That's kind of what transitioned me back to the back end this year. I take a lot of pride in the D zone, so I take a lot of pride on not getting scored on. So I think that year I got lucky being on the ice when a lot of people were scoring and not getting scored against.
I mean, well, you had 12 points or 12 goals and 19 assists. So it's not everybody that was scoring on that line. You were too.
Yeah, yeah. And then that was actually the year I broke my arm. That's why I only played 48 of those games of the 56. So towards the end of that season, I completely displaced my right wrist. Pretty bad fracture, and I had surgery for it.
Well, like I said, after that 22-23 season, you transfer over to a full-time defenseman for this past season. What was that talk like with Jerome? And what, like you said, you were a defensive player to start with. How was that transition going from being a defensive forward to being just a defenseman, maybe a offensive focused defenseman, if you would say? I mean, that's what I would focus you as.
Yeah, I in the 22-23 season where I played 48 games, probably 10 of those I had played defense before I broke my arm. So I was transitioning slowly but surely, and that was for a few different reasons. I mean, we had injuries where in game, like someone's got to fill a spot on the back end, right? And I definitely, like I said, I take a lot of pride in the D zone. I'm a big believer in defense wins championships. So after I played those 10 or so games in 22-23, over that next summer before this last season, Jerome definitely talked to me and he was like, yeah, obviously you take a lot of pride in the D zone. I am a pass first guy, try to get other people the puck, and I try to kind of work away from the puck as well. But I think it's just a natural fit for sure. I'm definitely not one of those guys that's going to try to hold on to the puck for too long. It's on my stick, it's off my stick. Try to use my body quite a bit. I try to be pretty physical. So I think we were definitely on the same page after that 22-23 season.
Talking about being pretty physical, we definitely seen more physicality from you this year than we have the past 2 years. Bring up one instance, because I haven't ever seen you drop the gloves that much. But this year, I know I watched a couple of times, and I still remember the versus the Bobcats, you and I believe it was Volt. Am I right?
Yeah.
And he was kind of like a little rat out there trying to draw penalties and get anybody to go with him that could. And you finally was basically like, I've had enough of it. And really, it was more of a wrestling match than a fight. And you kind of just hip toss him and threw him over you.
Yeah. I commend him. He plays his role really well. He pisses people off, and kind of like Brad Marchand in the NHL, right? He gets people pissed off and off their game and off focus, and so I commend him. He plays his role really well. But yeah, I had enough of it that night. I was upset that he fell so quick too. I had planned on trying to exchange some blows with him, but no, it was good. I'm glad he said yes to that for sure.
Whenever you did the little hip toss or whenever he fell, it looked like he kind of threw a little hissy fit type of cat punch at you.
He threw a couple from the ground, which was messed up, but it is what it is. It's the heat of the moment.
I mean, heat of the moment, throwing a couple from the bottom or maybe one or two extra from the top, as long as nobody's like hurt from the bout that happened before. I don't really see anything too big wrong with it, but you got to stop too at the same time.
Yeah.
So, explain to me training during the season versus training in the off season. What are you still getting on the ice right now? Like, because we have the ice rink, are you still able to go over there and get some skate time in? What's your training regimen during the season and during the off season?
Yeah, so in the off season, like right now, especially after the season, we get a long season, 56 games plus playoffs. We played 61 games in total this year, and it definitely takes a toll on the body. So after the season's done, everyone likes to take a little bit of a break, and I'm included in that. So we usually take a decent little break away from skating, a little bit more focus in the gym and rehab recovery from nagging injuries over the season. I actually had surgery on my arm again after the season. When I broke it in 22, 23, I had a plate and 9 or 10 screws put in there. And 2 of the screws actually went through the bone and were rubbing on a tendon all year this year. So I had to get all the hardware out. So I'm still recovering from that surgery. I'm only 3 weeks out today. So I'm still not probably going to skate for about another month, but it's a lot of focus in the gym, which is nice. It's nice to just kind of rehab and recover. And especially after having 4 surgeries, it's nice to just take a little bit of time and mend the body a little bit. In
Oh yeah, no
season,
doubt.
yeah, in season, it's a grind for sure. We're skating every single day almost, maybe have Mondays off. And then we're in the gym 3 days a week too. It's a lot. It's a lot, but I love it. I wouldn't change it.
Would you say during the off seasons more of trying to put on a little bit more muscle and maybe not focusing on as much cardio versus during the season it's maybe focusing on a little bit more cardio to be able to put out the more minutes on the long shifts than it is actually building the muscle?
Yeah, so um, in season, when we're in the gym, it's more of a maintenance kind of program, maintenance and prehab really, where we're just trying to stay healthy. We're trying to maintain exactly what we kind of created in the off season, trying to stay nice and strong and kind of stable for what we experience on the ice during the season. And the off season, yeah, that's definitely our biggest time to progress and get stronger and faster and leaner and everything like that, right? It is a little bit different catered for the off season as opposed to end season for sure.
Gotcha. Now we're going to move along into more of your role off the ice within the organization. When was it that you got the chance to actually be a part of the staff?
That was in 22-23 season. My second year here, I started in the front office pretty early on in the season selling group tickets for that first year. That was when I got that start in there.
And speaking of season tickets, your 2024-2025 ticket pricing is on the screen. If you have any more questions, please contact the River Dragons office at 706-507-4625 or sending an email to tickets@rdragons.com. Okay. And now, does your contract, if you can speak on this, are your contracts different? Whereas you get paid a certain amount per game, and then you have your contract for front staff, or are they kind of like mixed in together, maybe to save a little bit on salary cap or however the league is?
No, yeah, they're completely separate. The job that I do in the front office is just like if I went to any company in Columbus and tried to work for them.
Mm,
They're pretty separate. Yeah, the hockey side is the hockey side. The front office is just the business side.
I got you. Yeah, I didn't know if it was like, as far as I'm aware, like you have a player slash assistant coach where they get paid like one full salary for the whole year because of having that assistant coach role, and it kind of saves up a little bit of money to go towards other players.
Right. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. With that position, it is different for sure. I know quite a few teams have players working in the front office trying to sell tickets too, but yeah, it's a little different than that assistant coach. player coach kind of position.
So you started off as group sales and all that. What's your main focus now within the front office?
So I'm the director of sales now. So I manage our entire sales team, and that right now is kind of growing and changing. We have quite a few people doing sales, but my main focus is one, doing and directing all of the individuals underneath and just making sure that everyone's on point with their sales, whether it's group or corporate, and then making changes for the future based on the past year, everything like that. But also, I mostly focus on the corporate side and corporate partnerships for the off season, and then once we get in season, it's a little bit of a mix between corporate partnerships and group sales.
Okay. So with the corporate partnerships, are like sponsors and things like that.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. So I like to end it with a couple of fan questions. So I post on the page who I'm talking to for that day. And let's see here. So you'll probably remember this name very well. Zach DeBozart.
Yeah.
He asked, is the goal call from your first professional goal your favorite? And he says he hope he didn't botch it.
And I am glad that he asked that question. Yeah, it is 1,000%. I think that might be the nicest goal I've ever scored in my entire career. And the way that he called it makes it even better.
Let's see here. Phil Holland says, what is your favorite experience so far at any level that you have played?
That's a tough one. There's a lot of great memories and a lot of great experiences. I think in youth hockey, it's really fun to do tournaments in different states and just be with your friends and be kids, everything like that. It's tough, especially as you get older. You kind of miss those moments for sure. Playing mini hockey in the hallway and staying up and causing trouble. I think I miss that for sure on that side of hockey. But I think my first game or weekend here, and even the first season, is probably my best experience in hockey so far. It was just run so professionally from top to bottom. My entire experience with that first game and first weekend, I just loved every part of it, from meeting our equipment staff to meeting the front office to playing in the game and playing for Jerome Bouchard. I think that was awesome. It was a really cool experience for me.
That's great. The last one I have on here is, which we've already kind of answered by Rob Haley. It says, when did you start playing, which we've already covered, but what made you pick hockey?
Yeah, and I think I touched on this too, but it was my sister. My sister was a goalie when I was growing up. And so I started at 5, but I think just watching her and watching her play street hockey with my dad, I was like, man, I want to do that. I want to be involved in that. And then it was nice. She was a little bit older than me. She was probably 7 years older than me. So I always had that kind of rivalry with her with hockey. I was always trying to beat her, and I was so much smaller than her at that time. It was nice competition for me for sure.
Now, my final question, from a fan, what are the fans like in Columbus versus everywhere else in the FPHL?
Oh
And how loud is it on the ice whenever everybody gets going?
man, I love it. Yeah, there's not another place like this in the Fed. What I love about our fans is, one, they're super loyal to our team, great, and they treat us amazingly. I can't say enough good things about our fan base and how they treat us and how wonderful they are. But the second thing is they don't treat away teams terribly, right? Like, we'll go to some other rinks and some other arenas in the Fed, and we're walking through, and there's some heinous things said to us. And I get that. That's part of the game. It doesn't really bother me too much, but I appreciate that the people of Columbus, they're just people. The people on the other team are just people. And yeah, we want our team to win, but we're not going to try to hurt their feelings or ruin their lives over it.
Yeah, and then like I said, how whenever you're on the ice and the crowd actually gets going and the chants start and and all that, how loud is it actually on the ice when you're playing? Can you actually, like, because I know y'all are calling stuff out, like, hey, over here, pass, pass. Can y'all actually hear each other talk whenever everything is going, or is it kind of like, got to use my eyeballs a little more?
Yeah, no, you do. You have to use your eyes a little bit more and be a little bit more tuned into the game. Anytime it seems like we have a crowd over like 4,000, 4,500, it starts to get to that point. On military night, when we're over 7,000, it's cool. It's one of those moments that you're getting goosebumps, and when all the trainees are doing their creed, it's wicked cool to be a part of, and just one of those surreal moments that you're sitting on the ice and you're thinking to yourself like, man, I can't believe I'm doing this right now.
All right, Kirk. Well, like I said again, thank you so much for doing this with me. It was an honor, and hopefully I can talk with you again maybe throughout the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.